question. First off, how many of you are from LA proper, or you know, Southern California generally? Just about everybody. California as well? Okay. I'm sorry, what? No, living here, working here. Yeah. Okay. How many of you listen to public radio? It doesn't have to be us. It could be any public radio station. And of those, keep your hands up. How many of you have children? And how many of you force your kids to listen to NPR while you're driving them to school? Thank you. I want to thank all of you. And here's why. Got this email earlier today. It says, "Dear KPCC, I just love your radio station. In my room, it's running all the time, even when I go to sleep. All my friends say I'm weird, but I don't care. So what if I'm only 12 years old? Here is $5 because I can't keep giving. I have a small allowance. Your big fan, Lil Beck." So those two things really made my day today, I have to say. Look, there are a lot of people who are friends here, and really want to thank them, but I do also want to particularly recognize Wendy Guerin. When I first arrived here in Southern California about 14 years ago, no one knew what the hell Southern California Public Radio was. No one knew who I was, and she made one of the first grants to SCPR. I think her board questioned her sanity at the time, and in the intervening, at the time, KPCC was either the 4th or 5th most listened to public radio station in Los Angeles. 14 years later, KPCC is, depending on the month, the 3rd or 4th, or 2nd or 4th most listened to public radio station in the country. So that early support means a lot, and then seeing folks like Joe Lamarda and Wendy and Paul it was wonderful to see when it came in. So I know I am standing between you and getting home, whether that means that you're going to go to a Prairie Home Companion tonight, or you're going to, if still tickets on sale at the Greek, you can get over there real quickly. Or whether you're just going to go home, crack open a beer, do whatever. So I'm going to actually make this less of a talk and more of a do. And so you guys are going to need to get up and move around here, because believe it or not, there are a couple of things I want to talk about. One is vision, but before I talk about vision, I want to talk about the question of substance versus essence. And that is actually the philosophical question of Ulysses' boat. Some of you probably slept through that class when you were in introductory philosophy and wherever you went to undergrad. But if you remember in the Odyssey, it takes Ulysses 10 years to get from Troy back to, where did he go to? I'm forgetting now. No, it wasn't Crete. In any event, it'll come to me in a bit. But in any event, it takes him 10 years to get home. And in that point, Homer talks about all of the planks, all of the planks and all of the nails and all of the rigging and all of the sails, everything about the boat has changed. There's not one single piece of that boat that was with Ulysses when he left for Troy. And so that raises the question, is it the same boat? It's a question of substance versus essence. And that goes to the mission of all of our organizations, and it goes to the populations that we intend to serve and the populations that make up our organizations. So I'm going to do a little bit of moving you all around here, and so you're going to have to get up. What I'd like to do first is I'd like all the females to be on this side of the room, all the men to be on this side of the room, and those of you who are, other can stake out a position in the middle, but women to my right, your left, men to my left, your right. Shouldn't take long. Come on, let's go. There are whole tables over here of women that didn't need to move at all. I'm just saying. Come on, let's go. Seriously. You're going to make new friends in this process. Okay? All right. So I'll just ask the question, is this demography representative of the communities that we serve? All right, I'm not asking for, I want you all to think about it. Now I'm going to do a little more subdividing. What I would like is for those of you who identify as white or Anglo in that corner, those who identify as Latino in that corner, African American that corner, Asian Pacific Islander that corner. If you are multiple ethnicities, feel free to stake out a place in the middle. Or other, as I said, other or none of the above can take a place in the middle. All right? Okay. Let me ask the question again. Is this demography representative of the communities that we seek to serve? Is this demography representative of the communities that we're in? Now I'm going to divvy it up again. What I'd like is for all of you who were liberal arts majors over here on this side, all of you who were social science majors over with Latinos, all of you who were math and science majors over where we have the African American group over here. So if you weren't wherever you feel, if you have multiple degrees, wherever you feel most comfortable. So science and math over here, liberal arts over here, social sciences over there. None of the above over there. None of the above over here. Pardon? Medical would be none of the above. I'm sorry? None of the above right over here. Yes, right over here. Okay? Business would be over here. Liberal arts is over here. Wherever you feel most comfortable. Okay. Again, ask yourselves the question. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Ask yourselves the question, is this broadly representative of the populations that we're serving? Is this largely representative of the populations we need to serve? Is this broadly representative of the skill sets that we need in order to serve our communities? Now, I understand that the futurist who was here yesterday, and I apologize I wasn't there, was talking about writing code. So now I have a very specific group that I want to identify. If you have the ability to write an algorithm that can take advantage of large data sets that in that analysis would allow your organization to do a better job of fulfilling your mission, then I want you to come right up here. I want everyone who can write an algorithm, or even better, I'm sorry, what? You personally. 0. If you have maybe not the ability to write, oh, we got one? Hey! That qualifies. Now if you have the ability to evaluate somebody's ability to write that kind of algorithm, join up at the front. All right, we got one more. Keep coming. Anybody else? Okay, all right, look, don't be shy. Keep coming. Small group. Small group. I wish I had a prize for you guys, right? Now I want to do one last thing. For those of you who have either been professionally involved in nonprofits or served on boards for more than 10 years, you're in this corner. If it's been between 5 and 10 years, again, you're over in my far right corner. If it's been between 1 and 5 years, over to the corner in my left. And if it's been less than 1 year, you're back over here, far corner to my left. Closest to the speaker. So this is 10, 5 to 10, 1 to 5, less than 1. I'm sorry? Yes. Involved in nonprofits. Doesn't have to be a key executive. Okay. How are we doing at attracting people into our organizations at reasonably high levels, finding people who have skill sets that might be complementary, et cetera? I would argue, again, this is not necessarily a representative sample, I understand. This is probably going to be more executive people who've spent a long time. But again, I think the demonstration is pretty clear that in terms of just sheer demography, we've got some issues. So you guys can go back, take your seats, or just hang out with the groups of friends that you did not know you had. And so while you're on your way back to your tables, I'll tell you a story. About a year ago, I was talking with a guy named Gil Elbaz, and Gil Elbaz is this brilliant dude. Of course, he went to Caltech. And his first company, which was, if I remember correctly, Digital Semantics, he sold to Google for like $500 million. So he's pretty much set. And now he's got a company called Factual. And Factual is attempting to organize all of the world's information. Not necessarily for search, but organize all of the world's information. That's a pretty audacious goal, if you ask me. And I told Gil that I wanted to have the first data scientist for public radio. And he looked at me and he said, why do you think somebody with that skill set and that orientation would want to hang around with a bunch of bleeping English majors? And I did not have a good answer for him. And it made me realize that, the things that we talk about in terms of culture, in terms of who we are looking for, who we are connecting, we have a tendency to self-replicate. And Paul Haga has a wonderful saying. He says that diverse institutions replicate themselves diversely. Uniform institutions replicate themselves uniformly. And in times where you are dealing with significant social, technological, economic, and other kinds of change, those entities that are more diverse tend to be able to replicate themselves and manage their way through those changes. And so, again, I want to ask you all the question, are we the right people to address the opportunities that exist in Los Angeles, to address the problems that exist in Southern California. And, how many of you, were any of you at the California Community Foundation confab last night in Pasadena? So Fernando Guerra, who's from the Center of the Study of Los Angeles, was getting after some people, calling them Debbie Downers. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I think that the questions that we're addressing here are really critical to our ability to be able to provide the kinds of services and to fulfill the mission of our organizations if we are not broadly reflective of the imperfect paradise that we live in here in Southern California. I think this is absolutely a critical issue. And again, to quote Paul Haga, if we all agree, there are too many of us. It's true. If we all agree, we are not finding new, creative, different ways. We are not having that creative tension. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because you share somebody's demographic or ethnic or linguistic characteristics that you're necessarily going to agree. But it's also going to mean that you're probably more likely to have a shared set of assumptions and a shared set of backgrounds and values that aren't going to be pressing and pushing up against your own comfort zone. And so, then we have, I think, a very serious question. If we have some issues around our own demography, what can we do to attract people who are not like us to our organizations? What can we do to attract people who aren't like us to our organizations? And I will share with you my particular belief, and that is that it fundamentally, somebody was saying mission matters most. And I think that's fairly spot on. But I'd go a little bit further because I think it actually comes down to vision. And mission and vision obviously are central, but your vision is the ability to communicate that which you are trying to achieve in your mission. And I believe that a vision has to be large enough to be inclusive of much smaller visions. And in this, I have two teenage daughters, which may understand why I deal with certain things the way I do. I didn't take teenage daughter in high school or college, and it's been a challenge. But my daughter, who's a freshman in high school, came home and they're studying like the Roman Empire and the rise of Christianity, and she was like, Dad, how did that happen? How was it that Christianity was able to undermine and then overtake the Roman Empire? And just by the way, we're not particularly religious in my household. And I said, Stephanie, there are two quotes or two passages from Matthew that you need to go and look at. Matthew 7:12, which is basically the do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. And then Matthew 22:37 through 40, where he basically talks about, what are the two most important laws of all the laws and the prophets. And he says, love God and then love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law. And that was radical. That was a radical notion. If you know anything about the Roman philosophers or Greek philosophers that preceded that, that notion of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you was simply profound. And it was you can find a lot of things in the Bible, but the things that other people could put their own smaller visions into is basically summed up in those two what would you call them? Two quotes, if you will, from Matthew. And that kind of overarching vision that allows and affords people at all levels of the organization and from all different kinds of backgrounds to feel like they have a place within the organization, I think is absolutely critical. And it doesn't have to be as heavy as, you know, Matthew 7:12 or 22:37 through 40. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is the Don Quixote Sancho Panza switch. I'm an English major, if you didn't figure that out already. How many of you have actually read Don Quixote? You can, oh wow, more than I would have guessed. Lots of English majors or literature majors here. Thank you. I feel like I'm among friends. So if you remember, or if you didn't read it at all, I'll give you the Cliff Notes. You know, Don Quixote is crazy. He's just a lunatic. But he has this incredible, you know, noble vision. And at the beginning of the movie, the book, it will become a movie soon, I'm sure. You know, he has this, you know, so I'll put the, he's up here, and over the course of the book, because of all of his failures, he becomes embittered. And by the end of it, he is just a nasty son of a bitch. At the same time, Sancho Panza, who is as cynical as you can imagine, sees this constant striving, this incredible persistence, this unwillingness to admit defeat. And he becomes incredibly noble in the process, and ennobled by what Don Quixote is trying to do. And what I'm hoping here is that you all in any of your organizations can find a vision that allows look, I work with a number of cynical, and in fact, actually yesterday there was, of all places, Jezebel. It was this article about whether you should date reporters. And for those of you who are cynical, single, I would tell you that that the person who wrote that article was delusional. Do not date a journalist if at all possible. But in any event, if you have a vision so that somebody is able not only to connect with the larger vision, but find their own personal level of fulfillment, and then continue that on and reinterpret it in ways that are meaningful to them, then I think you have the ability to begin to attract people with different skill sets, different backgrounds, different linguistic capacities. By the way, how many of you, and be honest here, how many of you speak 2 languages? How many of you speak 3? How many of you just speak 1? Okay. I think only about 30% of Southern Californians are monolingual. Most Southern Californians are bilingual, and I think also about between 25 and 30% speak 3 or more languages. So again, the ability just to communicate on a very special, or very basic level is, the different capacities are profound, and as you get younger, you also get more likely to be polyglot. So my encouragement to you all today is that when you go back to your organizations, that you think about ways in which you can take that mission and craft a vision that is going to attract, and not only attract but resonate with, a generation that is digitally native, that's multi-ethnic, that is quantitatively sophisticated, that is linguistically polyglot, culturally pluralist, and again, those are the people that we are going to be serving. Millennials aren't like kids anymore. They are, within 15 years, they will be the largest demographic group in the country. And so the ability for us to serve serve those individuals, and I think more importantly, attract them to our public service is absolutely critical. Now, in the process, that's easy to say, but it's also difficult to do. And as you're doing that, I would just ask that you keep one thing in mind, and that is to channel your inner Donald Rumsfeld. I really want you to get to make sure that you get a prize of some sort. You know, Regina, what can we do here? I'll be here all week. You can tip your waiters and waitresses. Thank you. Thank you very much. The first thing is we have to admit that we don't know what we don't know. I think one of the things, at least when I'm dealing with people who are, you know, young enough to be my children and now my grandchildren, you know, one of the things that they really don't like the most is when I try to think or act like I know what I'm talking about there. So, you know, there are the known unknowns, there are the unknown unknowns, and there are the known knowns, right? The known knowns we got. But we absolutely have to be more candid about expressing that we don't know what we don't know. And so kudos to all of you who were comfortable admitting that you weren't going to be able to write that algorithm, and that when that kid comes in the door and has one, you're not the person to evaluate it. You'll find somebody else to do that, right? And I think it's also critical, this goes beyond now Donald Rumsfeld, to be open to that inspiration and serendipity. A woman who's on my board, several of you might know her, Adelaide Hickson. I think she's 93 now or 94. She's been on our board for 12 years. She has a great saying in life, and that is, and look, now they're leaving the door. I apologize, no. She says, offer friendship and see what happens. Offer friendship and see what happens. And I think that that's, you know, particularly when you're dealing with people who have different backgrounds, different skill sets, different, what would you call it, formative experiences, that willingness to be friendly, to admit what you don't know, see what happens, I think that works out pretty well. And then finally, Stuart Quo, who was up here earlier, he's a lot smarter than I am. There's a reason why he's a MacArthur genius. He wrote a book called Uncommon Common Ground. And I think that if you do those things, if you can create a vision that allows for people who have differences from your own to find fulfillment in them, and you admit that you don't know what you don't know, and you offer friendship and see what happens, that those, I think, are really the prerequisites for finding that uncommon common ground. And once you've done that, you're then able to address the specific issues that you're trying to resolve, and also finding ways of partnering with other organizations and more fully realizing the potential of your organizations. So, you know, we try to do those things at SCPR. We're not always successful at them, but just about everything that we've done has been made possible not only through great support from Wendy, but from so many of you in the room. I want to thank you all for the support that you've given to SCPR. Thank you for the work that you do within the community that makes Los Angeles a better place to live, not only for us, but for those 12-year-old kids who are being forced to listen to, or not forced to listen to public radio on their way to school, but also, you know, making and preparing Los Angeles to be, I believe, a model for multi-ethnic, pluralistic government and governance in the next century. So again, Regina, that's all I have. Thank you all so much for being here, and drive home safely.